Ladies and gents, last year, 2012, Teutonic Thrash got one of the highest honors that you can receive here in the Cover Killer Nation universe. And that's in the fact that one of their bands, Kreator, was able to score the Album of the Year and the first Perfect 10 issued by Cover Killer Nation ever since this channel's inception. Let me tell you, 2012 is definitely a huge year, but 2013 is shaping up to be another monumental event for fans of the original Big Three of Teutonic Thrash. Sodom have released their new album. Well, they will be releasing their new album here in about a week. And that is entitled Epitome of Torture. Now, Sodom has definitely been a highly influential band ever since they first came onto the scene, with albums such as Agent Orange really being a huge inspiration for a lot of thrash metal bands nationwide and worldwide. And their dabbles into a more death metal sound have also influenced a lot of death metal bands. And there's even some that would allude that even some black metal has been influenced slightly from Sodom's aggressiveness. Now, ever since Sodom and a couple of albums prior to that, such as M16, we have definitely seen Sodom return to form with that more traditional, that more just heavy, hard, really all guns blazing thrash metal sound that really made them one of the kings in this department. And now, with Epitome of Torture, their first album in 3 years, once again, the world is going to explode because of this aggressiveness. This is an album that doesn't quite last 40 minutes in length, and it is definitely one that is filled with aggression. There is no track on here that eclipses the 5-minute mark, and to be perfectly honest, that is A-OK. That's exactly how this album needs to be, because this is straightforward thrash, straightforward aggression, straightforward balls-to-the-wall insanity, something that have become hugely large parts of the Sodom name. I still remember whenever the self-titled album came out. I remember that trademark cover, and I remember listening to these guys thinking to myself, what the hell am I getting myself into? Which Sodom am I going to be listening to? The Sodom from, the Agent Orange era, the Sodom from the earliest eras of their inception, or the Sodom of late? And then the thrash kicked in. I heard trademark songs such as City of God and just immediately dropped my jaw. And once I was able to pick it up off of the ground and reconfigure it to its proper position, the next song started, and the whole process just happened once again. It was just a jaw-dropping, spellbinding return to form, and really this band has just been consistently on the rise ever since, including finally doing some dates in America a couple of years ago, which was their first time in America in nearly 20 years. So, Sodom has definitely taken this kind of new school idea of older thrash metal bands coming back and really returning to form. The funny thing about it is that it seems almost a shame that a band such as Sodom, a band such as Kreator, and then of course we just talked about a Destruction album within the past 6 months, can really return to the form that made them a hugely influential part of thrash metal, and of course the kings of Teutonic Thrash in the eyes of many people, back in the late 1980s, early 1990s. But yet the bands that are involved with the Big Four, with the lone exception of Anthrax, which is still kicking ass, Metallica has really fallen off the face of the planet as far as their traditional sound. Death Magnetic was, of course, a little more focused approach on thrash metal, but just didn't really size up to the previous albums. Megadeth's new song, it seems as though they're trying to turn back the clock a little bit further back than their own inception, and kind of dividing time between a hard rock / new wave of British heavy metal sounds. It's an allegory that many people don't see, but that's what I heard, so there you go. Opinions are like assholes, we all have them. And Slayer really hasn't made anything that's really interested me ever since the middle part of the 1990s. So why is it that it seems like these bands, Sodom, Kreator, and Destruction, have really been able to channel their old school aggression and just produce these incredible albums? Maybe, just maybe, the Teutonic Thrash side of things, well, they were truly the kings all along. Regardless of that idea, whenever we listen to Epitome of Torture, it is something where the quickness of the affair is definitely not one that is able to silence the riffs that are packed within. The real metaphor that I will use, I used it before, I will use it again, are riffs beyond riffs beyond riffs beyond goddamn motherfucking riffs. These are big time riffs that are channeled with just hyper aggressive lyrics and hyper aggressive delivery that really remind you why thrash metal was such a hugely influential and hugely popular genre in the latter part of the 1980s. Everything almost feels like just regular, new wave of heavy metal or punk on cocaine or super cocaine. Everything is just performed with such breakneck pinpoint accuracy, and it's done so in a way where you literally feel as though you're being steamrolled by the music. You literally feel as though Angel Ripper's vocals are steamrolling you, and the music is the actual tank itself. And that is once again something that is channeled on Epitome of Torture, as it has been for the past couple of albums. Remember in War and Pieces? Remember how awesome that album was? I remember whenever that first came into the store, I immediately had to have the deluxe edition of that release. I immediately had to add that to my collection of Sodom albums, which include popular ones such as Agent Orange, but also ones such as the ones I mentioned previously, M16 and Sodom. Gotta have those. And as, of course, I find more, I will build more. This is something where I'm not going online. I like the thrill of the hunt. However, with Epitome of Torture, this is going to actually resemble in War and Pieces in many ways for me, in the fact that I'm going to want to, purchase this album the minute that it comes into the store. But now with the added option of vinyl, I'm going to want it on wax, as well as a CD copy. Now, what makes this band so powerful is in the fact that whenever you listen to it, you immediately get the same feeling that you would if you listen to a classic album from the American Big Four. You get that hyper-aggressive tendency to just bang your head and bang it so hard that once you are completed with it, you have a headache, your neck hurts, you feel like you were just in a mosh pit for 20 minutes or 2 hours, except you were in a mosh pit of 1. You really get involved with this music because of how aggressive it is. And what's nice about this is that the songcraft has definitely not decayed, and the whole idea of this thrash revival, even though, Sodom has put out about 2 or 3 albums ever since the thrash revival has really taken on its own form, these are albums that still feel extremely fresh whenever they're presented to you. With a lot of revivalist scenes, it's something that is almost very nice whenever it first occurs, but as time wanes on and bands continue to kind of just rehash the idea, the nicety and the, real novelty of it begin to wear off because you're starting to just hear the same thing over again. It's no longer fresh, it's no longer new, it no longer has that feeling of being spot-on brilliant. However, with a band like Sodom, and of course with the past couple of albums from Kreator and from Destruction, some people will even throw in Tankard, this is a revival that sounds as fresh as whenever it first came out. It sounds just as devious, as deadly, and as pinpoint accurate as it was whenever it came out. Listen to tracks like Cannibal or the track SODOM, Sodom, that just spells out the name. And you realize that it really does not matter what the song is called. They're able to make it interesting because they have just powerful riffs. They're able to really mix up the idea a little bit. The pace is always breakneck. The pace is always, hyper-aggressive. But that's okay because they're able to really engage you with the songcraft, which is, once again, top-notch. And they're also able to engage you with the lyricism. This is something that is absolutely tantamount to why Sodom is considered to be one of the best thrash metal bands in the world, period. Now, the one thing that I will say that may bring this album down for some people is the fact that it is only 40 minutes. It does seem a little bit short for a 3-year wait. However, I kind of like the pace and I kind of like the time frame that's spent on this for one reason and one reason alone. You don't want to necessarily have an album that seems too bogged down with just over-excessiveness, and I know I've said that many times before in the reviews. However, it is just something that makes an album more memorable. You want to have something that from start to finish really has a heightened sense of itself, not to mention is able to maintain its pace, maintain that flow, and just keep you engaged throughout the entire experience. And this album, Epitome of Torture from Sodom, is able to do that, and able to do that quite well. I gotta say, they did everything right on this album. They did a lot of things, if not everything, right with in War and Pieces. I'm once again revitalized and really reinvigorated whenever it comes to this band, and I think you guys will be too. Any fan of Teutonic thrash or thrash metal in general is going to just absolutely go apeshit over this album because it's just got so much power and precision behind it. Anybody who's just a fan of heavy metal in general will really enjoy this album because it really brings you back to a time where thrash metal was king. And really any member of the hard rock universe that really has a preference to something that is extremely aggressive, extremely heavy, extremely hard will really like this album, simply because they're able to take the best of all worlds that are thrash, all worlds that are, you know, really just violent and aggressive, and put it together on one disc, and it's very, very easy to listen to. It's very easy to listen to despite the complexities of these songs. Really, really love this album. I really just love thrash metal in general, but this album definitely shows you why some of the best bands in the genre, should I say, were the ones that were around whenever it first came out. There is a reason why thrash was huge at one point in time in history, and bands like Sodom constantly remind us why that is the case. I'm giving this album a 9 out of 10. This is 4.5 stars. I mean, there is very little to complain about whenever it comes to this album. There is nothing that I can think of that really affected me or bogged me down. I loved the construction. I loved everything. The presentation is great. So I cannot wait for this thing to be released officially. And I hope that you guys feel the same way. Let's actually give Sodom a really powerful United States presence on the charts. Let's do it, folks. Why not?